So, I am traveling right now, but I wanted to take this time to do some special all-viewer question episodes of Morning Movie News. I've done this in the past, and it's a lot of fun to be able to answer so many of your questions, so I thought that I would do it again. And as I noted yesterday, these episodes encompass 3 stories, because 3 viewer questions, instead of the usual 4, which is 4 news stories and 1 viewer question. All right, so today we have 3 great questions, and the first is from Jojo the TC. And Jojo says, question, with Guardians of the Galaxy proving that criminals can lead a superhero movie, and the popularity of Harley Quinn, do you think that we'll ever get a Suicide Squad movie or TV show? Smiley face. Interesting question, Jojo. I love Harley Quinn, but I have to say, one of the things that makes me feel that maybe this wouldn't work out is how her character has been developed over on the main DC universe. I'm talking about the comics. For those of you who are reading this, you might have noticed this as well, but I feel Harley Quinn has been made much more violent. For instance, I picked up a DC Origins comic about a month or so ago because it had Harley Quinn on the cover, and they were like, oh, we're going to retell Harley Quinn's origin story again. I was like, all right, let's see what they do this time. And at the end of the story, she's telling a bunch of people, she's like, oh, well, I can trust you with this story. And then at the end, it's because she says, I know you're not going to tell anyone else. And then she kills everybody in an explosion. And I think it's really, the Guardians of the Galaxy were thieves, and, Gamora was supposed to be an assassin, but we didn't see her kill anyone. And she certainly never tried to kill Peter Quill, although that would have been a much easier way to take the orb, right? Just kill him right outright, shoot him, and take the orb. But no, it's a Disney movie, it's a Marvel movie, and they were, pretty tame for criminals. But the way Harley Quinn, I guess you might say, originally was. Now, in the animated series, of course, Joker did kill people, or it was alluded to, especially as the series went on and got a little darker. And of course, the Return of the Joker, obviously, that was a very dark storyline. But still, nobody died. And I think that Harley Quinn for a long time has gotten a pass and been able to be such a fan favorite because, she just was kind of like an unwitting participant. She didn't know any better. She was always just along for the ride. I mean, she was an accessory, but she wasn't an instigator. But with DC trying to make her a more, girl powery solo character that isn't so reliant on the Joker, the trade-off for that is that killing is her idea. It's something she does do herself. And it's really hard to root for a character that would do such a thing. I still find her compelling, but I don't know if you could make a movie out of her. Or maybe a TV show. I think a TV show would be the better route. We'll see how Sony handles the Sinister Six. That could also affect the question of whether or not DC would do anything with Harley Quinn, JoJo. But we'll see. She's very popular in the video games, but I don't play the video games, but I'm under the impression she's not going around killing people really there either. Again, she's more of the Joker's sidekick, which is how I think she's most effective. I know some people would like to see her be a solo character that stands on her own, but I just don't think the character works that way. I think she's a real, as I've discussed before here and on Think About the Ink, I think she's a really great way to spotlight, not only domestic abuse, but, oh, I forgot what's Stockholm Syndrome, and, just the way someone can be so easily manipulated for love. I think that's a much better way to go. I mean, they might be arguing, well, realistically, there's a natural-born killers, route where, of course, both the man and woman in the couple were deadly. But I think when you're talking about a property that's supposed to be somewhat accessible to, children, how do you really justify taking this new route with Harley Quinn? So I think Guardians of the Galaxy is a great example of, what was done originally with Harley Quinn, and that's why both were and are so popular. But Harley Quinn's still very popular, still sells a lot of comics, but then again, I think people are still, I don't think this new violent level of hers where she is, legitimately a murderer, a psychopathic murderer, a serial killer, a mass killer, has really it hasn't really become part of her persona just yet. But the more DC does it, I think the more that it will. So I don't think you'll see a Harley Quinn movie. And can you imagine Zack Snyder's Harley Quinn? I mean, he kind of made Sucker Punch, which featured a whole bunch of Harley Quinns, right? I guess to some degree. But we'll see. I don't know what actress can play her convincingly. She's such a difficult character to pull off. But she's a great character. I love Harley Quinn. And I'm not quite sure if that love is what's still making me turn a little bit of a blind eye to some of the things that DC's doing with her now that I'm not so happy about. But a movie, no. TV show, potentially. you could see it. And I guess it's only a matter of time also maybe she'll show up on Gotham, so keep your eyes peeled for that, especially since the Joker is supposed to be also eventually making an appearance there as well. So that's the first question of the day. Thank you, JoJo. Let's move on to the second one, which is T-Man Christian. And T-Man says, hiya, Grace, smiley face. Tanny here. Okay, hi, Tanny. I know this isn't necessarily a movie question, but how much are Comic-Con tickets exactly? This is a great question. Tanny's asked this a couple of times, but I just wanted to clarify because Tanny said, you said that one of your recent videos that they cost thousands of dollars. Not a smiley face, but a surprised face. Thanks, XX. Thanks, XX. All right, well, thank you, Tanny. I'm sorry that my comment about Comic-Con expenses was misleading. I apologize for not being more clear. It doesn't cost thousands of dollars to get a ticket to Comic-Con. It costs thousands of dollars to go to Comic-Con. Comic-Con tickets are pretty expensive. I forget off the top of my head how much they cost, but you know they're affordable. But the reason I said thousands of dollars is because you have to pay so much money to travel to San Diego. Now, if you live in San Diego or in the near San Diego and you can crash on someone's couch, then you just have to pay for the ticket to get in there, maybe your gas and your food. Although food is quite expensive at Comic-Con unless you bring your own because you know it's convention center prices and there's restaurants around there, but not a lot of really cheap eat options. So you know they're your expenses. But for most of us, you know, traveling to cover the convention, or a lot of people, San Diego is one of the rare convention where people actually travel to it. Pretty much every other comic book convention is just local, and you know you have people who can reasonably travel to it attending. But San Diego Comic-Con is so big. It's Comic-Con International. It's the one where all the movie studios show up with all this great footage. As you see the stories that come out, that's why it's so disappointing when they don't show up with the right stories or the big enough stories, which was something that we discussed this year, because of the amount of money people spend. And that's, I think, the capacity that I first brought this up in. But the thousands of dollars come from airfare and hotel room. Now, a lot of times people, can alleviate those costs by sharing a room. I know sometimes they share a room with up to as many as 5 people, as many people as you possibly can, because it's so costly. So if you, again, Tanny, if you live anywhere near San Diego, it's pretty affordable. But if you do not live anywhere near San Diego, that's where you start to see a significant increase in the cost because of the airfare and the hotel. Now, if they do have Comic-Con rates, but I will actually tell you that those Comic-Con rates are higher than it normally is. I thought you were getting a deal, but actually the rates are higher because one year I had to stay through to Monday, and so Sunday night was no longer included in the price point that Comic-Con had negotiated with I was staying at the Manchester Grand Hyatt. And boy, did the room price drop. I was shocked at how inexpensive it became. And so just be aware that's another reason you're seeing cost inflation, because they know supply and demand, and there are not enough hotel rooms, even with 5 people often to a room, to accommodate the demand. If you would like to go and see the actual prices and how to get a ticket, etc., I've put a link down below in the video description to the official website, and I recommend that anyone who's considering going, check it out. I actually, I've come to really enjoy Comic-Con. I would recommend everybody go at least once. It's difficult. It's a lot of work. You have to really be on the ball in terms of getting signed up for things. Tickets go very fast. This is one of those things where you have to be ready to log on the minute the second registration becomes open, both for tickets and hotels. And then it's very difficult to navigate it once you're there. But I think once, if you're into this kind of culture and this kind of entertainment, you really should go. It's a lot of fun, and I recommend it. Although hopefully this trend doesn't continue where they don't make big enough announcements, considering people making these pilgrimages to attend. Also, by the way, one of you pointed out to me that those D23 Expo tickets, those $2,000 tickets we discussed, sold out almost immediately. So Disney knows that they have the demand for the supply. So that's really interesting. And I believe that D23 tickets are starting to sell quite well. That convention that's every other year got off to a slow start, but I think Disney, by holding big announcements for that convention, are making it a must-attend event as well. So maybe if you live closer to Los Angeles or the Anaheim area, that would be a cost-effective event for you to attend as well, maybe instead of Comic-Con. And I think that's going to start to become a convention that is worth attending as well. And also, you can go to Disneyland while you're there, which is pretty awesome. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is from Dylan Rudy, and Dylan says, question: Kingsman The Secret Service got pushed back to 2015 to compete with 50 Shades of Grey. It was supposed to open in October. Ah, so sad. But Dylan says usually when a movie pushes back its release date, it's because it's a bad movie, like Jupiter Ascending. Is there anything that the studio can do to help alleviate that fear? I know there are sometimes legitimate reasons to push back a movie, such as with Gangster Squad in the wake of the shooting in Colorado. Why do you think they pushed back the film? He's talking there about Kingsman Secret Service. Thank you, and my day isn't complete without Morning Movie News, MMN. Thank you, Dylan. What a wonderful thing to say, and thank you for your question. Yes, this is becoming a big problem with Hollywood. I think on the one hand, it's something that we have to get a little bit more forgiving of because they reserve these release dates so far in advance that, you know, of course there's going to be some movement. You know, you're seeing that with Batman v Superman. They're like the Goldilocks of movies. Every release date is too crowded or too late, etc. They're not ready. It's fun to watch. But I think that, you know, that's a different situation where the movie is so early in production or hasn't even begun production that that's why you see a release date change. But it is pretty damning for a movie that's pretty much wrapped, ready to go, has trailers come out, be delayed because they've already started the advertising campaign, and that also, you know, means not only do they have to like win over the public again, but they have to basically reboot the advertising campaign that they've already begun to spend money on. Now, this doesn't always hurt a movie. The second G.I. Joe, of course, was pushed back to add more Channing Tatum, but they didn't really seem to add more Channing Tatum, so that was a mystery, but it still did very well at the box office. Also, Shutter Island was infamously delayed, as you might recall, and also was still a solid box office performer, although, in my opinion, not a great movie, and I can see why they pushed it back. And also G.I. Joe Retaliation. I enjoyed it. I watched it streaming on demand. It was very solid. I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it in the theater, but I had a good time. It was actually better than the first film. So we'll never know how much better it could have even done if it had been released on time. So what can studios do to alleviate that fear? I don't think there's anything they really can do because usually these decisions are made for a reason. There's a problem with Jupiter Ascending, obviously. There's a problem with Kingsman The Secret Service, obviously. I think it would have been very competitive in October. I think people were excited about it. That first trailer made an impression. And now 50 Shades of Grey, I mean, and also it's a February release date, period. You know, after considering, I think, the problems a lot of us had with Kick-Ass 2, it's like, okay, it's another Mark Miller property that just did not work out, doesn't translate. You know, he doesn't have a great track record. So Hollywood, maybe perhaps the best thing that they can do is work harder that these things don't happen. I mean, I think it's unlikely that they'd be like, how did this happen all of a sudden? How did the movie suddenly become unreleasable? I mean, you must see it starting to happen. You must see the clouds begin to gather. You must be like, this isn't looking so good. And this script, you know, it's not wonderful, but let's throw it up there. Although I have to say, I genuinely, you know, Jupiter Ascending, not surprised at all that it was delayed. But Kingsman, as I said, that trailer was very good. It looked very good to me. I'm just really surprised that it would not be ready to release. So, Dylan, I don't think anything can be done to alleviate it, and I think that there's very rarely a legitimate reason to push a film back unless it is not good and needs more work. But as I pointed out, it's not always a sign of box office failure for the movie in question, even if it's going to hurt it in terms of its image. And image is also important today when it comes to movies. So thank you so much for your question, Dylan. I mean, I'm definitely still going to see Kingsman The Secret Service whenever they decide to release it, but I'm going to lower my expectations accordingly. And I'm curious if you guys will do the same. Or do you believe it's still awesome and they just held it back for some mysterious reason that has nothing to do with its quality? All right, thank you so much for your questions. I hope you're enjoying these all-question episodes. So thank you, JoJo, Tanny, and Dylan. I appreciated your questions. And if you have any questions, please write them down below, and you might very well see them answered very soon here on an episode of Morning Movie News. Thanks for watching. Bye.